All right, so get ready because we're diving deep today
Diving deep.
into the world of metallurgical coal
Oh, yeah.
and financial reports, all that good stuff.
Love it.
We're cracking open Alpha Metallurgical Resources Form 10Q.
Okay.
That's AMR, their quarterly report filed with the SEC, of course.
Okay.
And this one covers July to September 2024.
All right.
And trust me, there's a lot to unpack here.
Baby.
We've got dropping coal prices,
Oh,
whispers of a mine closure even,
interesting.
and a global steel industry that's sending, well, let's just say, mixed signals.
The mixed signals, yeah. It's a little shaky out there right now.
Yeah.
Like we're piecing together a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
You got these individual pieces of data, and as we connect them, we get a clearer picture of not just AMR, but the entire industry.
Exactly.
The whole picture.
Yeah. So for those who need a quick refresher, AMR is a major U.S. supplier of metallurgical coal. And this is the kind that's used in steelmaking.
Right.
They are based in Tennessee,
Right.
but their mines are actually in Virginia and West Virginia.
Okay.
Now, this past quarter, they sold 4.1 million tons of met coal.
Wow.
That's 94% of their total coal sales.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So where's it all going?
Well, mainly heading overseas to Asia and Europe,
Okay.
with some staying here in the U.S. for American steelmakers.
Right, right.
Now, here's another interesting tidbit.
Oh.
AMR isn't just selling what they currently mine.
Hmm.
They're sitting on massive reserves, something like 316 million tons of coal.
Wow, that's huge. 316 million tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're prepared.
And plus, they employ over 4,000 people,
Right.
so their decisions have a huge impact on folks in those mining communities.
Absolutely. That's what makes this Form 10Q so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just a bunch of numbers. It's a story
Yeah.
about people and markets and the forces shaping an entire industry.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this report. First things first. What's the overall message here? What kind of financial health is AMR in?
Well, the report paints a picture of a company navigating some
Yeah.
pretty choppy waters.
Right.
Coal prices are down, and global demand for steel is wobbling.
So not exactly a recipe for smooth sailing, then.
Not quite, but there are some bright spots.
Okay.
The report points to India as a strong market for steel,
Interesting.
which is kind of bucking the global trend.
Oh, okay. So even with this overall downturn, certain regions are still hungry for steel.
They are.
That's got to be good news for AMR, right?
It definitely is. It highlights the importance of diversification.
Yeah.
You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, right?
Right.
Especially in a volatile global market.
Makes sense. Okay, now the report also mentions something about a potential mine closure.
Oh.
This sounds serious. What's the story there?
So AMR issued a Warnack notice
Okay.
for their checkmate, Powelton Mine,
Okay.
with plans to idle it in December 2024. This means halting operations, but it's not necessarily a permanent shutdown.
Oh, so it's like hitting the pause button rather than hitting the stop button.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The decision seems to be driven by these low coal prices we've been talking about,
Okay.
along with the mine's specific economics. The report suggests it could restart if the market picks up.
Okay, so we keep hearing about these low coal prices.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of just how much they've dropped?
Well, AMR tracks several different indices
Yeah.
for met coal prices, and they've all taken a hit.
Yeah.
The Australian Premium Low Volatile Index,
Okay.
which is a key benchmark for international prices,
Yeah.
experienced the steepest decline, dropping over 16% during the quarter.
Wow.
But even the U.S. East Coast indices, which reflect domestic prices,
Right.
saw significant drops, ranging from 13% to about 16%.
Wow, those are some serious declines.
Yeah.
No wonder AMR is feeling the pinch. Now, the report also mentions this thing called the PMI, which sounds kind of technical. Can you break that down for us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Think of the PMI, or Purchasing Managers Index,
Okay.
as a global economic temperature check
Okay.
for the manufacturing sector.
Okay.
It's based on surveys of purchasing managers around the world
Uh-huh.
who provide insights into things like production levels,
Okay.
new orders, and employment.
Right.
If the PMI is above 50,
Yeah.
it generally signals that manufacturing is expanding.
Oh, okay.
But if it dips below 50, it suggests contraction.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the PMI telling us about the state of global manufacturing in September 2024?
Okay, so
Is it good news or bad news for AMR?
it's a mixed bag, really.
Oh, okay.
The global PMI dropped for the third month in a row landing at 48.8, which indicates contraction. The U.S. also fell further into contraction territory, reaching 47.3.
Okay.
And Europe's not looking much better,
Yeah.
with a PMI of 45.
Oh, wow.
Its lowest point in 9 months.
Not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so those regions are definitely reflecting the challenges AMR is facing, but what about India?
Yeah.
Remember they were that bright spot in the steel market?
Right. India's PMI is still sitting comfortably above 50.
Okay.
At 56.5.
Okay.
Even though it's down slightly from August.
Okay.
And Brazil, which is another key market for AMR, saw their PMI jump to 53.2.
Oh, wow. So some glimmers of hope amidst all the gloom, it seems.
Yeah.
But how does all this translate into actual steel production?
All right, so the World Steel Association tracks global steel production.
Okay.
And their September 2024 figures show a total of 143.6 million metric tons.
Okay.
Produced across 71 countries.
Okay.
That's actually a decrease of 4.7%.
Wow.
Compared to September of the previous year.
So the steel market is actually shrinking.
Yeah.
No wonder coal prices are taking a hit.
Yep.
What about individual countries? Are there any notable trends there?
Absolutely. China, which is the world's biggest steel producer, saw its production drop by over 6% compared to the previous year.
Oh, wow.
India, on the other hand, held relatively steady.
Okay.
With production staying basically flat.
So it seems like their strong PMI isn't translating into a production boom just yet.
That's right. And then there's Brazil.
Yeah.
Which actually saw its steel production increase by almost 10% year over year.
Wow.
That aligns with their strong PMI.
Yeah.
And suggests a growing market for AMR's coal.
Okay, that's good news for AMR. Now I want to dive back into AMR's financials specifically.
Right.
What stands out to you in terms of their revenue breakdown?
Well, the report highlights just how much AMR relies on met coal sales.
Right.
It's their bread and butter, accounting for the vast majority of their revenue.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, those dropping met coal prices are having a direct impact on their bottom line.
Right. And they break down their revenue by market too, don't they?
Yes.
Domestic versus export sales? What's the story there?
That's an important point because it reveals their exposure to global market trends.
Yeah.
And the report shows that a hefty 77% of their coal revenue for the 3 months ending in September 2024 came from sales outside the U.S.
So those global market dynamics we've been talking about, PMI, steel production, all of that, those have a huge impact on AMR's performance.
Absolutely. They're heavily reliant on those international markets.
Yeah.
And it's not just about falling prices either.
What else?
They're also grappling with rising costs.
Okay.
Which is squeezing their margins.
We talked about those freight and handling costs going up, but what other factors are adding to this cost pressure?
Labor costs are a significant factor.
Okay.
The report mentions that the competitive labor market is driving up wages.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with those specialized skills.
Yeah. This makes sense given the specialized skills needed in the mining industry. And it's something AMR has to contend with.
So they're dealing with falling revenue and rising costs.
Yeah.
That's a tough position to be in.
It definitely presents some serious challenges. Yeah. And to really understand how well they're managing their operations in this environment, we need to look at their adjusted EBITDA.
Now, adjusted EBITDA, that sounds pretty technical. Can you break that down for us regular folks?
Sure. Think of it as a way to gauge a company's core profitability.
Okay.
By stripping away some of those one-time accounting adjustments that can muddy the waters. Yeah. It gives us a clearer picture of their operational performance.
All right. So what's the verdict on AMR's adjusted EBITDA?
Yeah.
What's this metric telling us?
Well, it's not pretty. Their adjusted EBITDA took a significant hit this past quarter. Plummeting by 68.1% compared to the same period last year.
Oh, wow.
That's a clear sign that those market headwinds are having a real impact on their ability to generate profits.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From global market trends to AMR's specific financial performance.
Right.
But there's still more to uncover.
Yeah.
Stay with us for part 2.
Part 2.
Where we'll delve into the legal challenges facing AMR.
Oh, yeah.
And other key insights from this intriguing Form 10Q.
Can't wait.
All right, so we'll see you there. Welcome back. We just dug into AMR's financial performance.
Yeah.
And those global market forces impacting their bottom line.
Right.
But the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't, no.
Right.
We need to consider the legal and regulatory landscape, too.
Okay.
Remember, businesses don't operate in a vacuum.
Right. Okay, so what legal hurdles
Yeah.
does AMR's 10Q reveal?
Well, two things stand out.
Okay.
First, there's this ongoing litigation
Uh-huh.
related to worker compensation,
Okay.
specifically around the Fair Labor Standards Act.
So basically a dispute over how worker time is calculated, like how they factor in time spent putting on and taking off equipment?
Right, things like that.
Okay, so what could this mean for AMR? What are the potential consequences here?
Well, it's hard to say for sure at this point. The report itself mentions they're still evaluating the potential impact,
Yeah.
but they acknowledge it could be significant.
Okay.
Litigation always brings a level of uncertainty.
Right.
Financially, of course, with potential legal fees and settlements,
Yeah.
but also in terms of reputation.
Right. Negative press never helps. What's the second legal issue?
This was a bit more complex,
Okay.
but potentially even more impactful in the long run.
Okay.
It involves a recent Supreme Court decision
Okay.
that's shaking up the regulatory world.
All right.
The case is Loper Bright Enterprises v. Raimondo,
Okay.
and it basically overturned a long-standing practice known as Chevron deference.
Chevron deference. Okay, refresh my memory on that one.
So it's a legal principle that basically gave federal agencies a lot of leeway
Okay.
when interpreting laws.
Okay.
Courts would generally defer to the agency's expertise,
Right.
even if their interpretation wasn't perfectly clear.
So this Supreme Court ruling is basically putting a tighter leash on those agencies, making them justify their interpretations more rigorously.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And that has big implications for industries like mining, which are heavily regulated.
Absolutely.
So how could this impact AMR specifically?
Well, the report specifically mentions that this decision could make it harder
Yeah.
for agencies like the Department of Labor
Okay.
to defend their regulations in court
Okay.
if they're challenged.
So this could potentially open the door for more legal challenges to regulations that impact AMR?
It's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
If the Department of Labor wants to implement stricter safety regulations for mines,
Mm-hmm.
it now faces a higher bar
Yeah.
in terms of justifying those regulations.
Okay.
They need to be more meticulous in their reasoning and evidence.
And if they can't meet that bar,
Yeah.
those regulations could be more vulnerable to legal challenge
Right.
from companies like AMR.
Exactly. It shifts the balance of power, in a sense.
Okay, so we've got worker compensation litigation and this uncertainty around future regulations.
Yeah.
Not exactly a walk in the park for AMR.
Definitely adds another layer of complexity to
Yeah.
their already challenging situation.
Right, and it highlights something crucial for anyone analyzing a company.
What's that?
You have to consider the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The legal and regulatory environment can have a huge impact on a company's bottom line.
Absolutely. It's not just about the numbers
Right.
in their financial statements.
So given all these challenges, what does this mean for AMR's overall strategy?
Well, they've already made some significant moves.
Yeah.
Like idling that Checkmate Powellton mine.
Right.
That suggests they're trying to be proactive
Okay.
in adjusting to these market conditions.
It's like they're battening down the hatches, preparing for a storm.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
They're also likely to be paying very close attention
Yeah.
to these legal and regulatory developments,
Uh-huh.
especially in light of the Loper Bright decision.
Right.
They need to be prepared for potential challenges.
Mm.
Yeah. And ensure their operations are compliant.
So basically, they need to be agile and adaptable
Yes.
to navigate this increasingly complex landscape.
Precisely.
Okay.
This 10Q is giving us a glimpse
Yeah.
into the kind of strategic thinking they need to employ.
It's like a chess game, right? They have to anticipate their opponent's moves.
Yeah,
Think several steps ahead.
exactly. And remember that glimmer of hope we talked about earlier?
Right.
Those strong markets like India.
Right. They can't forget about the opportunities out there.
Exactly. They need to balance caution with a focus on growth.
Yeah.
Diversifying their markets will be key.
Okay, so they've got to play smart,
Be smart.
stay informed,
Stay informed.
and seize those opportunities when they arise.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked a lot about external pressures,
Yes.
legal issues,
Mhm.
market trends.
Right.
But how is AMR actually measuring its performance amidst all this chaos?
That's a great question, and that's where we'll dig in next. We'll unravel the key metrics they're using to assess their financial health,
All right.
even when things get bumpy.
So buckle up, deep divers. We're about to explore the financial side of this fascinating story.
Get ready.
Join us for part 3 as we break down AMR's key performance indicators. So we've explored those global market forces.
Yes.
And the legal battles AMR is facing.
Right.
Now let's zoom in on their financial performance.
Okay.
I'm curious, how do they even measure success
Right.
in such a turbulent environment?
That's a great question. And AMR's 10Q
Yeah.
provides some valuable insights into how they're assessing their own performance.
Okay, so walk us through it.
Right.
What are the key metrics they're focusing on?
One of the first things they do is break down their revenue in a couple of insightful ways.
Okay.
First, they separate it by product type,
Okay.
metallurgical coal versus thermal coal.
All right.
As we know, met coal is their main game,
Right.
bringing in the bulk of their revenue.
And those dropping met coal prices we discussed earlier are definitely reflected in their revenue figures, right?
Absolutely, but then they take it a step further
Okay. Yeah.
and break down their revenue by market,
Okay.
domestic versus export.
Right.
This gives us a sense of their global reach
Yeah.
and how much they depend on those international markets.
If I remember correctly,
Yeah.
they're heavily weighted towards exports.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
This report shows that for the first 9 months of 2024,
Oh.
a whopping 80% of their coal revenue
Wow.
came from sales outside the U.S.
Wow, that's a huge chunk of their business.
It is.
Tied to those global markets.
Yeah.
So those trends we've been talking about, like the PMI and steel production, those are make or break factors for AMR.
They're absolutely critical. And
Yeah.
then, of course, we have the issue of rising costs.
Right.
Even if they could sell more coal,
Yeah.
their profitability is being squeezed.
Yes, we talked about freight and handling costs, but are there other factors contributing to this cost pressure?
Labor costs are a big one.
Okay.
The report specifically mentions that the competitive labor market is driving up wages.
Yeah, which is understandable,
Right.
given those specialized skills needed in mining.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine you're AMR,
Okay.
you're facing falling revenue because of those coal prices.
Yeah.
And on top of that,
Right.
your costs are rising. Not exactly an ideal situation.
It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where a metric like adjusted EBITDA
Yeah.
becomes so important.
Okay.
It helps us see through some of the accounting noise
Uh-huh.
and get a clearer picture of their operational profitability.
Okay, back up for a second.
Sure.
For those of us who aren't financial whizzes, can you explain adjusted EBITDA
Yeah.
in simple terms?
Sure. Think of your own personal budget.
Oh.
You have your income,
Uh-huh.
and then you have your expenses,
Right.
like rent, groceries, and utilities.
Yeah, all those fun things.
Right.
Yeah.
Adjusted EBITDA is kind of like looking at a company's income and expenses,
Okay.
but stripping away some of the less frequent or non-operational items.
Okay.
That can skew the picture.
Right.
It focuses on the core profitability of the business itself.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what does AMR's adjusted EBITDA tell us about their performance?
Well, it paints a pretty stark picture.
Oh.
Their adjusted EBITDA for the first 9 months of 2024
Okay.
is down a staggering 53.8%
Oh, wow.
compared to the same period last year.
So they're facing some serious headwinds.
Definitely.
What does this all mean for AMR's future?
Right.
Do they have a plan to navigate these challenges?
Well, while the report doesn't offer a crystal ball,
Right.
it does give us some clues.
Okay.
They're clearly aware of the challenges they face.
Yeah.
And they're taking action.
Like idling that Checkmate Powelton mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a strategic move
Uh-huh.
to adjust production in response to market conditions.
Yep.
And they're also acutely aware of those legal and regulatory changes we discussed earlier.
Right.
They know those external forces can have a major impact.
So they're not just sitting back and hoping for the best.
No.
They're adapting and strategizing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Their success will depend on their ability to stay agile,
Mm-hmm.
diversify their markets,
Right.
and anticipate those global shifts.
It's like they're sailing in uncharted waters.
Yeah,
They need to be prepared for anything.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this deep dive into their 10Q has given us a glimpse into the complexities they're facing.
It really has.
It's not just about one company.
Right.
It's about understanding the forces shaping an entire industry.
Well, there you have it, deep divers. We've explored the world of metallurgical coal,
It's a fascinating world.
steel demand, legal battles,
Lots of moving pieces.
and financial maneuvering, all through the lens of AMR's latest 10Q report.
Definitely a lot to consider.
We've uncovered some sobering realities, but also glimmers of hope.
We have.
And perhaps most importantly, we've gained a deeper understanding of how interconnected the global economy truly is.
Absolutely. That's a key takeaway.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Keep learning.
Keep exploring, keep questioning,
Keep asking questions.
and keep diving deep.
Dive deep.
Until next time.